we see a headline recently that two
Hold
Canadians.
on. That wasn't a clear starting point. Just take a breath, Patrick. You're all riled up now. I called you a bitchy boomer. Now you're all riled up. Take a breath. Let's go.
Because I am a bitchy boomer. There's no doubt about it. I've seen the budget. I follow the politics. It just makes me cranky. Okay, so I'm a little bit surprised by this, JG. We've talked about the missing middle and we've kind of focused on it a few episodes, what's going on in Canada, the missing middle, and what isn't being built, what is being built. And there are two Canadian cities that are apparently solving the missing middle housing puzzle faster than any others. Now, that's by CMHC standards. Here's my surprise. Peterborough wasn't on the list.
Well, yeah, of course.
Okay, so it's Edmonton, Calgary, and Toronto.
So there's 3 of them or there's 2 of them? I thought there was 2 of them. Yeah. Why am I not surprised that Alberta is on the list? Why am I not surprised that Alberta is at the top of the list? Listen, it's very simple. It's very simple, Patrick. In Alberta, both Calgary and Edmonton, the municipalities have went ahead and opened up those cities to the point where people can take a lot and now build 8 units. That's incredible. Here in Ontario, listen, Doug Ford, hats off to him. He's done 3 units, and now some of the municipalities are pushing it to 4 units. But Patrick, that's half of what you guys are able to do in Alberta. So once again, the Alberta government is one step ahead. And that's why that Calgary and Edmonton are in the top spot. That's my opinion on it. And I'm sure that because, listen, you guys can do 8 units on one piece of land. I can only do 3. So, of course, I'm not going to be able to compete.
Yeah. So you also can't compete because Alberta doesn't have the bureaucracy or the costs associated. So
Alberta has no bureaucracies?
No, very few bureaucracies. They've got them. They're everywhere. They're everywhere. But they're not to the degree that you've got that going on in Ontario and British Columbia as an example. By the way, the missing middle is, Edmonton and Calgary, not Vancouver and Toronto are what they call the laggards. They're kind of missing. So here's the point to your
Toronto's allowed up to 6. Just to clarify the record, Toronto's allowed up to 6, I believe. I don't do a lot of work in Toronto, but Toronto's allowed up to 6, if I remember right. The problem with Toronto is it takes so long to get permits that people don't even want to take on these projects. And I don't blame them. Listen, who the hell is going to wait 18 months to get a permit? I can get a permit in Peterborough in 3 weeks. And that's because they're really busy because recently I've been getting them in 2 weeks. So somewhere between 2 and 4 weeks. But man, I wouldn't do projects if I had to wait 18 months for a project. That's ridiculous.
Well, 18 months aside, that's one part of the problem. The other part of the problem is the costs associated with it. So you can build an eightplex with permits and everything in, let's say, Edmonton for under 10 grand. And I'm just throwing a number out there because it's really inexpensive. It's not 30% of the cost of a project, which is what happens in both Vancouver and Toronto, roughly, GTA. 30% goes to permits, taxes, zoning, all the shit that goes on. So, it's going to continue to be the problem. Now, here's we've talked about this many times, JG. Here's right now, this is where the math makes the most sense. So 6, 8 units, that missing middle, that's why so many developers are rushing into that space. And they're trying to stay working. They're trying to generate revenue. And so we've got a lot of rentals coming on board. Now, that's one side of the equation. The other side of the equation is they're not building what we would call single family detached because they can't make the math work. So today we're going to go through this little bit of a rental, I guess we'll call it a lot of rentals coming online, which is going to slow things down, soften the market a little bit in specific regions. But long term, look, 3, 5, 7 years down the road, and we're not going to have enough housing supply. We really are becoming a renter nation, whether we like it or not. It's slowly happening, and affordability is not going to get any better.
But do you think we're becoming a renter nation, Patrick? Because is it the market driving that? Like people want to rent, Or is it the real estate market driving that there's more renters because people can't afford homes? Or what do you think? Like, what's driving it? Because there's an element, and I could see an argument for both sides. A lot of young people right now, they don't even know how to change a damn light bulb, Patrick. It's not like when you were a kid and I was a kid and we grew up on the farm and we grew up fixing shit. Like, these young people, they don't even know how to turn, like, I have to change their light bulbs. My property management company has to go change light bulbs for these people. I mean, come on.
You make a valid point, but I think there's, one thing that we have to, hit on is there isn't any one thing that's the cause of this. Certainly government policy, federal, provincial, municipal, drives the majority of the issues that we're experiencing housing. Layer onto that what's happening economically, layer into that the interest rates and what's going on with the Bank of Canada. Layer onto that the global macro, which is slowly shutting down what's happening economically. I mean, there's a lot of factors. It isn't just any one thing. We would like to keep it simple so we can wrap our brain around it and find someone or something to blame. And it's just not that. It's a number of issues that are showing up and lots of headwinds that we're facing in the housing market right across the country, by the way. And so, and in this episode, we are going to talk about what's going on in BC. There was an old phrase, JG, I don't know if you're familiar with it, and I don't even remember what province it was. I don't know if it was Alberta saying it to Ontario or Ontario saying it to Alberta or Alberta saying it to Saskatchewan. The line was this: the last person to leave XYZ province, turn out the lights. And so right now I'm looking at British Columbia, knowing and seeing what's going on economically, and now within the recent housing frickin' drama nightmare. Will it get resolved? Yes. But in the meantime, it's like the last person to leave British Columbia, remember to turn out the lights. Because I think this province over the next 2 or 3 years, oh man, is it getting brutal out here. And again, there's going to be resolution, but the pain in between time is going to be high. Let's talk about that a little bit later.
Patrick, I see that in this recent article, in the Financial Post, that they featured Ron Butler, the angry mortgage guy. So I'm suggesting, based on your general disposition and his general disposition, I think you guys should form a new show called the Bitchy Boomers, and I want to be the host of the show so that I can interview both of you bitchy boomers, or maybe we just call it a segment. And I'd like Ron Butler to comment on this. I think that's what we should do.
Well, I've had Ron on my podcast, and I exchanged, the odd, whatever we call it, X tweet, whatever the hell it's called. We exchanged the odd one, and so maybe we should start the Bitchy Boomer Club, and elbows up crowd, which, because apparently that's who's supporting the elbows up crowd, is the boomers. You're not allowed. You're not allowed to join our club.
What? Because I'm not a boomer?
Well, no. If you're not a bitchy boomer, you're not allowed to join the club.
Just
and
not
if you're,
welcome.
you're not welcome. There's gonna. Listen, we're not gonna just let anybody in. We need people that agree with us.
Of course. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode number 77 of Rein It In, and we got a great show lined up for you. We're talking about the recession. The Bank of Canada recently announced that there's a 1 in 3 chance that we go through a recession. We're going to find out. And also, the contagion is spreading, and it's not a virus. 95% of BC sits on unceded land, and this might be a problem because one court ruling is vaporizing property rights. We're going to dig into that. And the last one that I'm going to speak to, Patrick, is student housing. It is terrible out there. There's a silent collapse happening. I've been talking about it for months and months and months. No one else seems to be listening, but now they are being forced to listen.
Well, if you're following us, what you're listening to is the fact that Canada's consumer confidence in anything has really dropped dramatically. We keep listening to the hype of our government, but we see the reality of what we're living through. It doesn't jive. We're also facing, further to your point, the great land illusion. Do we really own what we think we own right across the country? We think it's a BC thing. It's not just a BC thing. The contagion is in fact spreading. And we got to talk about the budget, the sleight of hand when assets aren't really assets. Oh my gosh, so much to unpack. We'll hit on a few things around the budget, JG.
Let's rein it in. Listen, folks, every single 2 weeks, Patrick comes on here and begs you, just about begs you, to like and subscribe. Now it's my turn. Please like, subscribe, comment. We love hearing from you.
And we love you.
All right, Patrick, Bank of Canada's come out with a survey. They say there's a 1 in 3 chance or odds of recession by March 2026. Now, let me guess. I'm assuming you're going to put these odds at like 95%. I don't know. I'm just guessing. But what are your thoughts on the survey, pal?
Well, I think it's confusing for anybody, and this is where the Bank of Canada and government in general, in my world, and what I'm witnessing, and as I follow along and I follow a lot of people, and I see a lot of rhetoric and a lot of narrative that's out there. The point is that the Bank of Canada, as well as the government, continues to lose any credibility. A 35% chance of a recession. Oh my gosh! If you're living in the world, walking the streets, you know that we are in a recession, and because they can play with the numbers and we start to say, oh, well, not technically, because gosh, we're 1.2% GDP growth. I mean, come on. Let's face it, JG, the numbers, this goes back to what we've often said around the CP lie. I mean, we just can't trust the numbers coming out. Recently, and I'll just quickly hit on the one thing, the biggest lie that came across is the Liberal government out there saying, we created 66,000 jobs in October. We're amazing. We're unbelievable. Like the rhetoric just drives me crazy because it doesn't take a rocket scientist or a rocket surgeon. You don't even have to be that smart to lift the hood to find out that most of those jobs, I think 37,000 or 42,000 of them were part-time jobs, JG. So again, you can take the numbers and manipulate them and create the narrative and gaslight all you want, but people are living in it. They're confused. None of this makes sense. And so I don't know what to say about it. We're in a recession.
Wait until I got my thoughts on it, Patrick, but wait until the Christmas, November and December. Lots of temporary workers are hired for those times. So wait until those numbers come in, Patrick. They're going to be geniuses at that point. I mean, my God, it's going to be genius town. But I've said, Patrick, from the get go, and it's a pretty common. It's a pretty common tactic. I don't know if, I mean, it's been going on so long now. I mean, I guess it probably won't happen, but it's a common tactic for them to play with the numbers, play with the numbers, play with the numbers. And then by the time we're out of the recession, they say, oh, the recession was actually back there. Like we passed it. Like, oh, they restate their numbers. Like this has happened many times in the past before. So this could happen where they restate their numbers. But listen, I don't think we're going to be out of it. In fact, I'm talking to a lot of our colleagues, Patrick, and our compatriots, if you will. And man, we are just like 2026 is going to be a bit of a slug. We're going to have to keep scrapping it out in the trenches. And listen, I'm the world's most optimistic real estate investor. We all know that. You are the bitchy boomer. I am the world's the most optimistic real estate investor. But we're gonna have to fight it out here in 2026, especially at the beginning. I mean, I'm excited for the spring. I can't wait for the spring market. Let's go.
Well, it's going to be hard, and GG, I want to say that I think you're probably one of the most optimistic people in general that I've met and or know, and that goes for business, not just real estate. And when individuals like you are feeling that and seeing it, and like having to grind it out and having to generate and lean into these things, I mean, we know that something's going on, and quite frankly, it's why I've become a bitchy boomer, and because we're looking often.
Are you saying you weren't a bitchy boomer before? Is that what you're saying?
I don't think I was that bitchy, but now I'm really getting bitchy. Like I'm really getting tired of this gaslighting and the rhetoric that is being put. And I'm even going to qualify it, JG. I don't care what government it is. I mean, certainly you look at what's happening with the NDP or the Liberals. To me, they're the same party. Everything's moved so far left that anything that is even a little off colors feels like it's way far right. I don't even know what that means anymore. So ultimately, we look at what's happening politically, and it's all just one big game. It's being run in my world as I keep looking at it. These are government decisions, government policy being driven by NGOs that you and I don't really know a lot about. And whether that's the World Economic Forum or the World Health Organization or whatever other world blah, blah, blah organization. None of it is our politicians making
I
this
just had
policy.
an idea. I just had an idea. We should create our own NGO. We should call it the World Real Estate Forum. What do you think?
Let's do it. Let's do it. Anyways, okay, so that's what's going on. When we look at what's going on economically, we have to batten down the hatches. We've shared this many times, and it doesn't matter whether you're a real estate investor or not. You're going to work every day, whatever it is, you're a small business owner. There is going to be some headwinds, and this goes back to what happens in these scenarios is that we're seeing, number one, let's qualify a couple things, JG, in this what I say is a recession. For the top 30% income earners, yeah, they don't really notice it. It's inconvenient. It's annoying. They're paying attention. Maybe they're spending a little bit less, maybe complaining about it a little bit more. But that bottom 50% and then the 20% above that, they're feeling it and they're making really tough decisions. And as a matter of fact, when we look at credit card debt that is increasing dramatically, it's not consumerism, it's actually people having to pay their bills on their credit card to see them through the month and to the next month. And so the costs that are associated with this economy in terms of the inflation and the costs are, I mean, let's face it, they're beyond the wage growth that we haven't seen. And so people are really having to figure out how to pay the bills on a month to month basis. And by the way, even Tiff Macklem in his narrative pointed out that, yeah, inflation is under control. Sure, now they've upped the bar, it's now 3%, blah, blah, blah. But the point is this: what's it been over the past 5 years, JG? In some cases, it's been doubling of prices. Consider some foods, consider what's happened in terms of rent, housing, all the rest of it. Inflation has been quite dramatic. It hasn't come back down in that 5 years. So it's hit this. Now they've got it under control. But the cost of living is not coming down. It's risen. It may have flattened, but that's what people are bumping up against.
For sure, for sure. Now, Patrick, on this note, let me bring a little optimism to this very depressing conversation.
I know. I'm bummed out about it too.
Which is, in this time, and I agree. I'm not saying it's easy out there, because it's not. We're slugging it out. We're doing what we got to do. But you know this, Patrick, as well, because you've been through many of these recessions. Whether we're in one or just not technically in one, but kind of in one, whatever the case may be. The point is there is a ton of opportunity in these times. These are some of the best times for people to create businesses and start businesses and grow their business. And that's that's the mindset I subscribe to. I believe you create your own economy. That is something that some people have to double down on, and they got to double down on themselves. They got to double down on the people around them. And I agree. It's not easy for everybody, but for some people that are going to rise to the occasion, it's definitely possible. Some great deals out there.
Some great deals out there. Well, here's the one thing that we know for sure. The U.S. is doing what the U.S. is doing. They're about to, Trump announced $2,000 stimmy checks that he's going to be pushing out to everybody. If you don't think that's going to drive inflation, you don't remember what happened in 2020. So when the government, and by the way, Canada will create some form of quantitative easing, we will start pushing money into the economy again. So hold on. Here's my prediction. Hold on to your hats, folks, because inflation is going to get worse and through 2026, 27. Now, having said that, JG, if you're following the show, if you're part of the REIN community, you know that our belief is that we have to get our capital, our fiat currency, into hard assets. We're big believers in real estate. We're not saying all real estate works, just keep, throw money up against the wall. We're saying be very strategic, but hold a hard asset, real estate being one of those things. I've also expanded over the past few years, and I've shared many times, precious metals. I still think that is a good store of value, as well as, depending on your risk level or risk tolerance, own some Bitcoin. So if you want to play in the equity market, you better be in it every single day to pay attention and understand some technicals, because that's a game that is, it's very interactive these days. It's not like set it and forget it.
There's a ton of rhetoric right now out there about a bubble. That's for sure. Lots of heat being turned up around the AI bubble and so on and so forth. So
Is it sustainable? Yeah.
Yeah, tons of that. But let's speak to real estate a little bit more, Patrick, which is student housing has, as we said in the opening headline, silently collapsed. And I've been talking about this for years, Patrick, that the student approach and the student rental business is a somewhat finicky. You got to be very careful. Yes, when it works really, really well. But I wouldn't put my entire portfolio in the student rental market. I've said this, but in fact, I've even advised clients. I've even advised clients that they should take their student rentals and convert them to duplexes, which like 2 units, which allows them to then rent to students and or rent to professionals, like have long-term renters, and maybe they can do both. That way they're diversifying their risk and they're lowering their risk profile. But man, you know what? People who do student rentals, and I'm going to go out on a limb here, Patrick, and I might piss off a couple people, but they are addicted. They are addicts. And they get such good cash flow on these properties that they're addicted to the cash flow and they cannot bring themselves to do anything else. And I've been seeing people firsthand lose their portfolio and they are taking an ass whooping because they're not willing to change their approach. And I think it's the dumbest damn thing in the world because student rentals are going to suffer for a while. Look at these stats, Patrick. Student permits are way down. I mean, way down. And you think you can get $900 for a room? You're dreaming. You're not getting $900 for a room. You're back to $550 or $600 or $650, and you're struggling like hell to keep students. And that's just the reality. So if you're listening to this and you're one of those addicts that's addicted to cash flow in the student rental market, I'd be very careful because I think the Green Reaper's coming.
JG, we've been talking about this for 2 or 3 years. You've brought it up many times, but when we look at this particular chart, I mean, look at it. It's the lowest influx of students in at least 10 years, at least. And so, when you compare that to where people were really jumping on the bandwagon in 21, 22, right up through the 24, wham. I mean, we're down to what, a third of what we were bringing in before? But to their credit, I mean, we were told this is what was going to happen. And, the cost of that, aside from the real estate investors who kind of went with that strategy and really hammered it. I mean, aside from that, think about the universities that are getting hammered because they don't have that income coming in. So there's all these ripple effects of students not coming into the country. And the least of which, or no, I don't want to say the least of which, but one of the consequences of that is the universities and the breakdown of income revenue into those universities, and then of course student housing.
And I just want people to look at this graph carefully because so the number in 2025, in 2023, it was the highest it's ever been. It was like almost 700. And then in 2024 it went down to 450, and then in 2025 it's down to like 300. Now that's far from 700, but it's going to continue lower. You're going to be at 150 and 175 in 2026, 2027, 2028. So it's going to get worse before it gets better. And man, it's incredible though, Patrick, as you rightfully pointed out, I think it was in the last show, boom cycles hides a lot of mistakes. And this is one of those things when the cycle turns in the real estate market and you hang on to your old antiquated strategy that doesn't work anymore, you're going to pay the piper. You're going to ride the wave all the way down. But here's the best part, Patrick. The best part is you don't have to. Like some people have made the switch. They've gotten away from, let's just say you own 3 rentals and all 3 of them used to be student rentals. I'm not saying get completely out of it. I'm saying maybe take 2 of them and make them long-term rentals and keep one of them as a student rental in order to diversify your risk. And if someone's not willing to consider that as possibly a good idea in this market, well, I mean, I don't know. I don't want to say they deserve what they're getting, but I mean, shit, the opportunity's there for them to change. They're choosing not to change.
They're choosing not to change.
Moving on. Okay, let's talk Carney budget.
Well, I think that it's what do we say about the Carney budget? I mean, we're taking the deficit from 40 to 80 million, whatever that number is. They're going to pump 180 billion dollars in, our deficit from 40 to 80 billion. Like, I mean, the numbers are getting astronomical. There's no way out of it. Our interest payments alone are going to eat up a huge part of our budget. Where the heck is the money coming from to pay all of this? We're still shutting down oil and gas. We're still on this whole green initiative with lots of promises of going, outside of the U.S. in terms of developing our economy. Now he's saying Canadians buying Canada or doing business within the country. That doesn't speak to exports. Like it's nonsensical in so many ways. I'm trying to find. I haven't literally sat down now and looked through all aspects of the budget. I've looked at highlights of it, and of course, none of it makes sense to me because I'm capitalist, not socialist, so I don't get it. That's how I look at it, and it's very, very frustrating to watch what's going on. We we look at the rhetoric and the narrative, and if you really unpack it, there's just not a lot there. And so, what's to say about the budget? Yet more to come. We'll see what happens. When is it? Is it today or this week? Is there supposed to be a vote on it or something? I don't even know anymore. I've lost the plot.
The system, Patrick, the system is broken. And what I mean by that is, when you have to constantly be making these promises and in order to get reelected, like this, just the whole way the system is created, it's broken. It needs to be rebuilt. Now, I have no damn clue how they're going to do it. But what I know is I don't think this is sustainable, just like you don't think it's sustainable. And this is the only thing these politicians have, is to make promises, give money away, give more money away. And the thing that really frustrates me more than anything else, and I talk about this all the time with people who are willing to listen, is it hurts the very people they think they're helping. All of this does is hurt the very people they think it's helping, that think it's helping them, but it's not. This all gets through back to it. All drives inflation and all eats away at the middle class and the lower income classes. It just eats away at their income. Inflation goes up, their taxes go up. They bring less money home, and all of this is one big friggin' ruse, Patrick. And none of it is going to work. That the whole thing's got to be shut down and started over again. But I don't know how the hell we're going to do that.
Look at that. So we have to always look into the future, connect the economic dots, try and make sense of it. What are we trying to do here? I mean, ultimately, we're looking into the future, and the picture's not bright. Let's face it. We're going to go through and I mean, we have our prime minister telling us we're just going to have to suck it up. We're going to feel some pain. Like he's telling us all the things that we're going to experience, which is not exactly driving optimism. That's for darn sure. There's so much distractions going on. Now they're talking about conservatives crossing the floor. Like a lot of noise out there keeping people off keeping the masses off the real issues at hand, which is what's happening economically. So those are frustrating parts of the whole, I guess, process that we're going through. Is this within this government? Carney's broke. We've shut down, as far as we know. Maybe we haven't, but it appears that we've shut down any negotiations with our biggest trading partner, being the U.S. We're now opening up the door to say, hey, let's hang out with China. Okay, well, it's not like there isn't tons of real data supporting the corruptness of China in with Canada. I mean, that's not a secret. It's like they're in front of us. So why are we going to, China when we've got neighbors that economy is huge and we can't seem to figure out how to negotiate with them, so we're busy making Trump wrong? That's another part of the rhetoric that drives me absolutely crazy, is that if we had some talent as a prime minister and as a liberal team, we'd be in negotiations still with Trump. And we use all sorts of excuses. Well, Trump is this and Trump is that. He's heavy-handed. Got it. Well, there's a whole bunch of other countries seem to be making it work. What's wrong with Canada? So maybe there's some big announcement coming. Maybe, Carney's being all sly and he's just not telling the general public what's going on. In parallel with all this other bullshit, he's actually negotiating something with the US, but I don't think so. So those are the kind of, it's really tough to be optimistic about what's coming. So when we look at that, optimism aside, JG, we have to say, well, how do we not just survive, but even thrive in this upcoming economy? And I'm planting the one line I've drawn in. We are on the precipice of stagflation. I've said it everything is pointing towards that. Short of a stock market meltdown, all indicators are we're going into a stagflationary environment. Rising costs against rising costs against rising unemployment. And that's what we're going to be facing as businesses kind of vacate, shut down, cut back, all the things that are actually in real time happening.
Now, Patrick, you have this other graph here, which is net debt to GDP. This is one of the graphs that we're going to talk about here, which I think is I don't want to say it's connected to the budget, but maybe
It
it's
is.
connected to the budget.
Yes, 100% it is. And the debt to GDP, uh, they're positioning it like we're amazing, but what they've included in that math that they've done, JG, they've included they've included our CPP and what do they call it?
QPP.
QPP, secure old age security pension plan, like the pension plan. They've held that as their
Now,
asset.
did they just do it? Did they just include Canada's but not the other nations, or did they include everyone's? Like,
The,
is it at least a fair graph or no?
no, it's not, and and the numbers that they're showing, like for Canada, they've overstated that because they're including things in our asset class, if you will, that it isn't ours. It isn't the government, so it's the people's. The
But
pension
Patrick,
plan.
the source of this is the International Monetary Fund.
Yeah.
I think that's one of those NGOs you're talking about.
And on it goes, and on it goes. So I don't want to talk about it anymore. I'm tired of it. I'm tired of the rhetoric and the absolute gaslighting and lies that are happening. And I know that's being really kind of out there, but yeah, I'm just tired of it. I'm frustrated.
Okay, let's talk about power of sales. There's no gaslighting there. Power of sales are up. Power of sales are going up. That's why lenders are freaked out. That's why we have a liquidity crisis. I just got off the phone, Patrick, with a client that we're working with, and we're looking at building 64 coach homes in a coach. I'll call it a coach home community. It's 64 of them. It's a whole development. It's really a cool little project. And the owner came back to me yesterday and says, "Listen, how are you finding financing for land development?" I said, "It's horrible. It is not easy. It's challenging. They want a million things. You have to cross collateralize. You got to have very deep pockets, and you got to be willing to go into them. I mean, it's not a great time. Now, deals can still get done, but shit, man, they're hard work. That's for sure. And if people are asking themselves, why is it so difficult? This is why. It is freaking the lenders out. They are very, very concerned about their balance sheets, and that's what's happening, Patrick.
Well, they are, and we've talked about it several times, and I think we can't over talk about it because it continues to gain even more momentum as we start to, and as the banks start to disclose just how much bad debt they have on the books, and and then on top of real bad debt, and then let's just take a look at the wave of potential bad debt that's coming onto the books. So they're tightening up. They're having to.
They see the wave, just so everybody knows, they see the wave, the toughest of the wave, like the most kind of all the majority of the bad debt hitting the books in 2026 and into early 2027. So this kind of early spike, they're all anticipating it's going to get worse for all of 2026, which is why they're tightening up right now, which really sucks for us as real estate investors, but that's the market.
That is the market. So we have to be, just aware of that. Again, as I've said many times, this is not the time to over leverage. I'm still concerned with, some individuals and just people in general in Alberta who think that, this market, is particularly Edmonton, is going to be this way for a while. I've been saying for a year now, and I think we're probably about 12 months away before people really start to get it, is that we're going through this cycle. Edmonton has come out of their boom cycle. We're into the slump cycle, and the slump cycle is not necessarily a bad thing, JG. It's not like it's a crash and boom or crash and bust kind of scenario, but it's going to get really soft. And so people don't like to hear that, and I'm suggesting that You don't have to stop everything you're doing. Just be more mindful of it. Don't over leverage. Make sure your cash reserves are good. Make sure that you're working on your pro formas in a way that is allowing for a decrease in rents, not an increase in rents. So you have to be really conservative in your math, which means, some deals that you wish would work aren't going to work. You're going to have to walk away from them. And you're going to have to be more discerning and more diligent in the math that you're doing, because in probably 12 months from now, somewhere in there, 8 to 15 months, let's say 10 to 15 months, you're going to start to see Edmonton get softer. That's it.
Well, I want to show a chart on the vacancy rates here, Patrick, because vacancy rates are back to, let's call it, more normal levels. I mean, vacancy rate through COVID went to like 1%, 1.5%, less than 2%. Some places like Peterborough was under 1%, which is crazy. I mean, and it's funny. I find it hilarious how the average person just normalizes this shit really quickly. Like, it happens for a couple months and all of a sudden this is the new norm. It's kind of crazy how people jump on board like that. But vacancy rates right now, national average is just over 4%. If you look at the various markets on your screen, and this isn't all of them, but it's some of the major markets, and this is for Q3 of 2025. And I've been talking about this for months, Patrick. It's been actually a whole year that I said it was 1 year ago that I noticed the rents were starting to soften. And it was it was $10 here, it's $15 here, it's $50 here, $50 there. And that has continued, and it has stabilized. It's not crashing, but it has stabilized, and it is taking longer to rent great places that typically would rent out much faster. And the crappy places where a landlord or a rental housing provider is not willing to put renovations in, not willing to update, not willing to bring it up to snuff, they are sitting, and they're going to continue to sit. I've been yelling this from the rooftops for months now, Patrick, where if investors want to secure their investment, they have to be willing to do renovations and provide a good place. That crappy rental by the dumpster that did really well in the hot market in the boom cycle, as you know, Patrick, it's the first one that doesn't do very well.
Totally.
Right. And I just to give you a story, there's a client, we just built a beautiful coach home for this client. Last time you were here, Patrick, we didn't get a chance to go visit, unfortunately, but this newest coach home we just built, that coach home should have rented for $2,350, $2,400, $2,450, maybe even $2,500 in a hotter market. We just rented it for $2,200. Now that's $100 less than he should have got per month. But is it the end of the world? No, it's not the end of the world. And that's the other thing, Patrick, is investors, as you said, when they do over leverage, one of the problems is when you over leverage, you give yourselves absolutely no breathing room on the downside. So that $100 all of a sudden makes a huge difference, and you're concerned, and you're cash flow negative, and so on and so forth. And that only happens when you over leverage. If you don't over leverage, you have that breathing room. And you know what? We just rented this great place for $2,200. And you know what? The next time it comes up for rent, we'll probably rent it the market rent's going to be back up. We might get $2,030, $2,400, $2,500, $2,600, $2,700, depending where the market is at. My point is that when you do real estate, you're looking at being in this game for 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 years. So don't get caught up so much on like what you rented it for today, because over the course of time, this stuff will all average out.
We say it all the time. You got to have a longer term plan, knowing that you're going to go through these dips, through these cycles, and then we just have to accommodate them. That's what's going on. I can't stress enough. We have to put our money to work in this current environment. We are at the effect of what's happening global macro. That's the bottom line. JG, we've talked about it many, many times. I think I didn't include the gold chart in here, but
there's one gold chart about China, and they are just ripping gold at China. Well, I was going to ask you, that was actually the next question I was going to ask you. What's happening there?
Well, this goes back to what's happening is ultimately these other countries east is losing confidence that they don't want to they want to get out of doing business with the US. So when the US put all the sanctions on Russia, all these other countries went, holy shit, if they can do that to Russia, what can they do to us? We own all of these US dollars vis-a-vis the US treasuries. And so what they started to do was shift out of US treasuries, and they started buying gold. By the way, I've said it many times, every central bank globally has invested in gold, almost everyone. One of the missing, of course, is Canada. We own no gold. You
I
have
was
no
just
gold.
about to ask because I bet you Canada's missing that boat.
No. We got rid of that in 2015, 2013, something like that. But the point is, uh, this is an indicator, and it's why it's so important for people to understand what's happening with fiat currency in general. So, precious metals, the Bank of China is loading up. China is loading up on gold. India is loading up on gold. Russia owns a ton of gold. I mean, it's what is happening as people as countries say, I don't want to hang on to those US dollars, I'm at risk. So that's what's going on, and that's why we're going to start to see gold go up high. But it's also an indication of what's happening. It's why quantitative easing is kicking in. I mean, it's such a big kind of, there's a lot of conversation and understanding to be had around it. I always just say, okay, well, let's just dumb it down and say this: we need to consider getting some of our liquidity, some of our cash into hard assets. That's the bottom line. And it's so important to do that, given what's going to transpire over the next many years. The game's changed. That's it.
All right, let's wrap it, Patrick, by talking about the BC saga. Get us up to speed on the Aboriginal title claim? What's happening? I think you and I talked about this 2 weeks ago, and then you happened to be in Peterborough. We spent the weekend together, you and I, at the at Alfonso's event, their Wealth Genius event, the Expand event, and this has been all the talk. I mean, everyone's talking about this. Everyone is in the loop on this. This is going to have repercussions.
Well, it's not everybody's in the loop. I'm surprised. Just this week, I've had conversations with three different pretty significant people in the world of real estate and business, and they weren't aware of what's going on in BC. So just to bring everybody up to speed, so for many years, right across the country, we've actually been reading and reciting land acknowledgements. So hold that thought. Okay, land acknowledgements, Indigenous land acknowledgements. We've said we're on unceded territory. We've said it out loud, or that we honor the traditional beliefs of the very specific nations of the region. Okay, whatever region you're in, you acknowledge it, and it's become a part of every freaking meeting, every event, classrooms, politics, doesn't matter. You do a fundraiser and you do a land acknowledgement. So keep that in mind. So what happened, for those who weren't paying attention or weren't aware of it? So back in August of 2025, the BC Supreme Court ruled that certain crown lands they grant defective and invalid. That's, you got to pay attention. Defective and invalid, because Indigenous title was never extinguished, JG. So all of British Columbia, and oh, by the way, we use the term contagion. It's happening in Quebec. It's going to happen right across this country. It started with Richmond. All of a sudden, we discover that, hold it, it's unceded. In other words, there's no title transfer to Indigenous. It's protected by the Constitution, by the way. And the ruling that happened in the court made it really clear that Aboriginal title exists outside the land title registration system, JG. And that translates to, and what it means is that fee simple ownership does not automatically override the Indigenous title. So you start to see how convoluted and how complicated this gets. So in Richmond specifically, there was a commercial, I think it was $100 million deal that the bank pulled the funding on last minute. They said this is unceded Indigenous territory. The title has never been surrendered. We don't have any treaties that say so. And now Indigenous groups right across the country are actually doing two things. They're leveraging this precedent-setting court case. They're leveraging the acknowledgement. So this is where I want to go back to the acknowledgements. We've been telling the world that we acknowledge that the Indigenous people were here before us. They own this land. We've said it out loud. So now they're taking us to court, going, okay, well, how can you back off of that statement that's made thousands, tens of thousands of times across the country? So this gets a little bit, I'm giving you a little bit more detail probably than you want, but within BC, they have what they call UNDRIP law. and that's to assert the rights and title with legal standing. And what it stands for is the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. That's UNDRIP. You got that? United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. And that happened in 2007 in the UN, their framework. So this is a really, really
another one of those NGOs, Patrick, you talked about. Jesus.
So here's the thing, JG. Did you know that Ottawa, by the way, sits like Parliament, I believe it is, the buildings sit on unceded real estate.
When are we going to get some clarity on this, Patrick? Because the fallout from this is ridiculous. I mean, you want to talk about, we're already having right now a liquidity crisis, and you're talking about, and that's the first domino to fall, in my opinion, is all of a sudden, any property that's currently being financed and say, well, I'm not sure I can renew this mortgage. I'm not sure I want to renew this mortgage. You know what I mean? Like, think of that just the mortgage security industry is all on top of this.
Okay, so no, this is huge. Like, this is a way bigger deal. I mean, I think some people really get it. Others are going, well, they'll get it worked out. No. This is not what's happening. So, by the way, so it went from Richmond. So now the city of Kamloops, 100,000 plus people, and they're sitting on unceded territory. So think about those land acknowledgements, which were symbolic. No. They're actually becoming the argument in court.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's the proof.
It's the proof.
It's becoming the evidence.
Unceded territory used to be symbolic. Now it's like binding. And so now what the hell do we do? Because so Kamloops got hit, Sun Peaks got hit, so ski resort, the natives are saying, hey, we own that too. And so this is beginning. So what do you do at the bank? Now, what's happening in Richmond right now, and we'll see what happens in Kamloops. If you're selling a property and you, JG, are looking to buy a property, and then you see what's going on in Richmond, not a chance.
For sure. 100%.
You don't want to move there, let alone get financing. So if you're stuck because you're going through a divorce, a death in the family, you've lost a job, you got to sell your property. Nobody's buying. It's shut down. So 95% of British Columbia is unceded. So think about this, JG. You're a business. You're in British Columbia. It's already happening. I mean, businesses that have shops, have operations on unceded real estate, they're already hit and go. They're out. And so,
they want to get ahead. If you're over there, you're thinking, well, I'm going to get ahead of this wave because, from this point on, it just gets worse in their opinion.
Well, think about it. If Stephanie and I were in a different, I'm looking at, so for example,
you're just down the street.
I'm just down the street. I mean, we live, outside of the Abbotsford area in Fraser Valley. I mean, right now, there's nothing going on, but I'm telling you, I've been asked to read land acknowledgements at a few events locally that I've spoke at. And they've given me this sheet of paper saying, you need to read this. I go, not a chance. I refuse to read it. And if somebody else wants to read it, they can have my place. I'm not going to read it. I don't agree. I don't align. It's totally is nonsensical to me. This is really a absolute ball drop by our NDP government and David Eby. I'm really concerned about British Columbia right now. Really concerned. The long term. Will it get worked out? Yeah. But do you know how much damage can be done between now and then?
It's already doing damage. People are losing their job. Businesses are going away. I mean, it's already doing its damage. I like what and by the way, we're loving the YouTube comments you guys are dropping. So please keep dropping the comments. We'll keep talking about them on the show. I love how Tex Cohen is saying, imagine, and this is the reality for people, Patrick, like you said, just the average ordinary Joe. Now, we're not talking about someone who owns a ton of real estate. We're talking about the average ordinary Joe who owns his house. Imagine having to get permission from a native band to sell your house that you've had for over 50 years. This is what is called a clown country.
It is. It is absolutely crazy. So as we wind down, JG, and I know you got a hard stop, I'm going to ask you one profound question that occurred to me, because you are a big fan of AI and robotics. Not that I'm not, by the way, I am, but you're a really big fan of it because you see the affordability improve as we, costs of things come down, you get more bang for your buck, et cetera. So you've got different thought processes around it. But here's a question to ponder. We both like the concept of robotics. Do you agree?
I would agree.
Okay. Robots don't pay taxes.
That's correct.
So if we don't have workers being paid to then take that check and go spend it, a dollar to a dollar to a dollar, and we've talked about that.
Yep.
Now what?
That's a very good question. And I've asked myself the exact same question.
Oh, you have?
I don't have an answer.
Yeah.
I don't have an answer, but I'm asking myself the exact same question because it's not. And by the way, to have a more simplistic example that is happening right now is as EV vehicles hit the road, most of the money that goes into the roads is the taxes that you pay on fuel. But if you don't pay those taxes on fuel and you're an EV, well, how does that keep the thing going? So that's what I'm saying. The whole thing, dude, has to be rewritten. You need the whole thing.
Oh, JG, now there you go. That's the Great Reset in motion. So there we go. Another NGO.
Boy, oh boy, oh boy. Patrick, let's talk about one more YouTube comment before we wrap this up. I think, and by the way, just loving all the comments. So please keep it coming. And I think this is the God of War 3744. He or she, I'm not sure who it is, but the number of reasons not to invest in Canada is growing. And not only is that foolish, nonsensical, and nihilist, it makes no sense. In other words, Canada, you are done. Over. Now, I don't know if this person is from Canada or not. I'm not sure. But Patrick, this is the point, back to what we're saying, is we're trying to grow something here. And in order to grow something, you need energy coming into it, both in the form of like actual people energy and capital energy, meaning money, meaning foreign direct investment. You want money coming in. And right now, we are doing absolutely everything possible to not have people or money or any type of energy flow in. It all seems to be flowing out.
Well, yeah. And then, we're going to be Canada supporting Canada, Canadians supporting Canada. Like, I don't get it. Like, none of it makes sense. It shouldn't be called the Great Reset. It should be called the Great Meltdown, maybe. I don't know. But here's the thing about it, JG.
That's really good, Patrick. That's really good. Unfortunately.
But here's the thing about it, JG. You and I are entrepreneurs. We're business guys. As much as we are looking at being, I'm being the bitchy boomer or whatever story we wrap around that. I'm also, what drives my brain is what is the solution and where do we pivot and how do we come out of this? Because this is the adversity that, what is it? What's the phrase? Adversity is the mother of invention, and I there's just some truth to that. There's a lot of truth to that. And so we just have to find out where do we lean into it? Where do we see
this is the fourth turning. The system is broken. It's not working anymore. And the whole thing is going to be rebuilt. How? I don't know, but that's what's happening.
Okay. JG, I was looking to you for solutions.
Well, Patrick, thanks for an awesome show. It's been a great show. We talked about a lot: recession, no recession, the contagion, the student housing fiasco, the confidence crisis, the great land illusion. It's been a great show. Thanks for doing it. And I can't wait for the next 2 weeks. What else is going to show up?
I don't know, but we're going to rein it in. If you enjoyed this episode and you want to hear more of what JG and I have got, check out our last episode. It was epic.